Hello and welcome to Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the documentary No Other Land, directed by an Israeli-Palestinian collective including Yuval Abraham and Basel Adra. So this documentary won Best Documentary Oscar, and I'm really glad that it did. It may not have actually been the best documentary, but it's so important that this honour has ensured that this film is getting the maximum publicity. The documentary is about life under Israeli occupation in a town in the West Bank. The town is Masafa Yatta. It's a very raw, shocking and painful film to watch. It's an urgent portrayal of systematic displacement and resistance. And while it may not be the most polished documentary in conventional terms, its real importance lies in the story that it tells and the voices that it amplifies. The film documents the destruction of Palestinian homes in the West Bank, where families faced forced evictions to make way for Israeli military training zones. Through a mix of shaky cell phone footage, archival material and intimate conversations, it captures both the brutal realities of occupation and the humanity of those resisting it. The collaboration between Palestinian activist Basel Adra and Israeli journalist Yuval Abraham forms the emotional backbone of this film. It's clear that they have a genuine friendship despite the deep divides. The first thing to say about this film is that it has a great emotional impact. It's a film that everyone should see. We really see the human cost of occupation. We see multiple scenes of children salvaging belongings from demolished homes or playing in makeshift swings. There's a real juxtaposition of their innocence with all of the devastation. This has stayed with me long after viewing. The film is not highly edited. It uses unfiltered, really raw footage, and this lends an immediacy that feels true to the chaotic reality of life under this occupation. It feels chaotic, it feels dangerous. We really get a sense of the courage of the filmmakers. There's very little explanation, and we're presented with the footage, with conversations between the filmmakers and the various families of the village. There are occasional bits of random explanation, like we are told that there's 2 colour number plates for cars. Only the Israeli colour is free to drive wherever they like, whereas there are restrictions for Palestinians. The film focuses a lot on Adra and Abraham's relationship. This is really positive, and it does give us some information as the film evolves. Also, it does a really good job of avoiding treating its subjects as mere victims. It's a really human film. Some of their discussions really add depth and nuance to the film. They candidly discuss Abraham's privileges, for example, his ability to leave versus Adra's confinement. It's really shocking at times. As I say, I'm really pleased that this won the Oscar for Best Documentary. I haven't seen any of the other documentaries yet that were also nominated. I will try and catch up on them if I can. However good they are, I can understand why the Academy members would vote for this film to win. Nevertheless, there are some more comments that I can make in terms of critiquing this film as a documentary. Firstly, there's a general lack of cohesion. The documentary has a really fragmented style. This does give it a rawness, but I think it's quite messy. It relies on what at times feel like random clips rather than having a clearer narrative arc. I think that this potentially reduces its effectiveness for those who are unfamiliar with the context. The film has come in for some criticism from certain quarters for being biased, even for being anti-Semitic. I think that a little bit more formal documentary structure could have helped in making it feel like the filmmakers could be trusted, and that this could have made its very important message more accessible and impactful. I also wonder if we could have had some commentary from experts. Introducing talking heads might have diluted the rawness of the film, But I think that some expert commentary or additional context could have strengthened its credibility for skeptical audiences. I definitely think that some information on the illegality of the Israeli settlements would have been very useful. Multiple international bodies and legal frameworks have declared the settlements as illegal under international law. Also, I think that a little bit more explanation on who the settlers are would have been helpful. Most of the time, the footage is showing us the army harassing the villagers. However, there are one or two occasions where it's the settlers, Israeli citizens living in the West Bank, that turn up with guns in the village. It wasn't always fully clear what was going on here, but I found this really chilling, and I think that this could have been better explained. All that said, a couple of years ago, Navalny won the Best Documentary Oscar. I reviewed that film on the channel, and like No Other Land, that was a really important film that everyone should see. However, I did criticise it for being perhaps too structured in its filmmaking. It was very cinematic. Its use of music was really evocative. It was heavily edited to be a glossy, almost feature film. I felt that it would have been more trustworthy if it was perhaps a bit more reserved. No Other Land is at the other extreme, and I do think it could perhaps have been a bit more structured. They're both great documentaries, but I think it's interesting to reflect in both cases whether they got the balance right. Despite its imperfections, No Other Land is a vital piece of filmmaking that needed to be made and seen. It may not meet traditional documentary standards, but its rawness is definitely part of its power. The film bears witness to injustices that are often ignored or minimised on the global stage. It forces viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about systemic displacement and power imbalances. It's interesting because I think the film isn't just about the injustice, it's an act of resistance in itself. It's using the film clips as documentation, as a tool to amplify marginalised voices and challenge the unequal power structures. One of the satisfying things about No Other Land winning the Oscar was that the filmmakers got to go on the stage and highlight the injustice. It's powerful that the film was made by Israeli Jews and Palestinians. If you haven't seen their speech, it's well worth Googling it after you've watched the film. So I can definitely forgive the film for its possible weaknesses in terms of formal documentary structure or techniques, and I'm open to the fact that the rawness of it definitely kept me gripped. I started Googling immediately after I'd watched it to get the extra context that I thought the film could have provided, and perhaps this was the point. I highly recommend this documentary. More than that, I would say that it's one of those films that everyone should watch. If you enjoyed this review, please consider liking and subscribing. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.